I am here with Koji.
Hello.
How is the tour with Bob Nanna going?
The tour with Bob Nanna is going very well. Bob Nanna is one of the most personable and talented human beings. And so to be sharing the road with him is really great because we, no tour is ever the same. So I think it's very much a collaboration between the people on tour and between the people you meet along the way. So being able to share the road with him and be able to experience the UK with this new lens, it's like a brand new tour just because I've never done one with Bob Nanna. So it's been a really cool learning experience, and I feel very thankful for the wisdom and knowledge he's shared, and most of all, his sense of humor and DJing skills. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's great. He picks all the music. It's great.
Cool. I was gonna ask, what is it like being on tour with a person in a band that you probably grew up listening to? But
Yeah.
you kind of answered what it's like there.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, it's great because you have to compartmentalize a little bit a person from his work. Because at the end of the day, the more that I play music, the more I find how totally human everyone is that does this, and the more open and accepting, whether it's like a type of music that I would or wouldn't listen to, or presented in different ways. I feel more and more like I just love all music, which wasn't the case probably when I was getting into Braid or Hey Mercedes.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to kind of be able to take stock and know that you can just keep playing music and do it on your own terms and continue to grow in a more warm-hearted and open-minded direction.
Do you feel kind of less constrained to genres now?
Yeah, and I mean largely in part it's due to the fact that everyone has the tools to record and share their work, and so the democratization of those means that everyone can participate. But at the same time, when I was growing up, we didn't have Guitar Hero, so you had to buy a guitar.
Yeah.
And because we didn't have Facebook groups or places to gather like Instagram or Twitter, cultural tribalism took place at punk gigs and in rock clubs and things like that. Yeah. And so you had to go out to find freaks like you. And so I think going to shows was how I got tapped in, and I realized even then, even though it was you were demoing on 4 tracks and maybe you saved up enough money to go to a real studio, there was still this sense, and I think today it's still what makes punk and DIY vital, is that this sense that you can do so much with very little. The resourcefulness that is our tradition in DIY, that sort of creativity and ingenuity that is shown every single generation. I mean, that's just youth culture. That's humanity. That's the most vital shit that's out there. So to me, to be a part of this is to be witness to people really living, and that's what I want to see because I really want to live. So I come to shows or I play shows to be inspired, And just to be able to participate in that dialogue, what a great honor, you know? So it's great to be tripping around the UK with Bob Nanna and to be connecting with folks like you,
Great. Literally, me and Bob just spoke about kind of from his perspective when he started out as well,
right,
and how different it was back then, but about the DIY scene and how technology's kind of revolutionized that everyone can make music now, anyone can do it, and it is kind of it's a more open environment.
Right. But I think we have to unpack that a little bit, because it's anyone can make music. Anyone could always make music. In fact, music is something that's so, it's just about as old as the oral tradition. It's how we exchange ideas, how we share our experience, how we process and cope in many cases. So this communication tool, we were never limited by not having a cassette 4-track or GarageBand on our iPhone. We were never limited by the fact that you couldn't record music before. Humans will do this anyway, and so people like Bob and I, Well, I can really only speak for myself. It's just like, I would do this because this is how I express my humanity.
Yeah.
This is how I process the hard shit that I've had to go through, you know. It's how I'm able to kind of remind myself of those trials and, you know, self-progression and all those things. So that's what I mean when I say, like, the more I play music, the more I have love for all of it, because it's just us.
Yeah.
And there's so much to really appreciate. You know, if you're having a hard time being happy about being alive and being here, you know, it's like you just have to work on your perspective and attitude. It's like that doesn't just change your own reality, but it changes the reality around you in some cases. So music is that tool to do that, to orient yourself and to kind of alter your own trajectory, you know. And that's great, you know, having a sense that you have a little bit of control, that you have a voice and you can voice it. That these are things that are like pretty radical because we're so marketed to. We're so told that you need to buy into happiness, you need to buy into success. Worst of all, you need to buy into security. You know, we're so just like remove all the material, remove all the status. Like, we as humans are such a resilient species, you know. We're able to make it happen, to get through, to get by. So I think, like, I don't know, for anyone listening now and thinking about what they don't have, I would encourage them to look at what they do, you know, and not define themselves by their lack or their fear, but what they have. And what we really do have is a lot, especially when you're a part of something like this, like punk or DIY.
Yeah, it is a real community.
Yeah, truly. I don't even remember what you asked, but that was...
It was all good.
Sorry.
It was all good, though.
Okay.
Just hearing you speak now, and from things that I've read in interviews with you before, and things that I've read about you when people have written pieces on you or whatever, you always come across like you do now with this genuine, like deep and genuine love of music. And is that a motivating factor in coming to the UK and doing a smaller tour rather than... you could have, you know, done another US tour, stayed near home, but you've chose to, you know, come here and...
I think this is my 5th trip to the UK. And like I said, every trip is different. And I think what has always remained important to me is to operate in these uncomfortable, maybe not uncomfortable, well, yeah. I know that if I'm not uncomfortable, if I'm not challenging myself, if I'm not on my frontier space, then I'm not learning. And if I'm not learning, I'm not really doing anything. So I want to be doing something, and I think that drives me to want to tour, to want to record, to want to come back to the UK, because it's like I can tour here once, and I knew that there was more to learn. So I think just peeling away the layers and getting to engage with new people, and you know, like when we were thinking about this tour, I was like, I want to play small rooms. I want to work with promoters who care. I want to be able to meet every person that comes to the show, because that's important to me. And I really want to live out my values and also have like the most fun in the world. So like being able to have something like music that can transport me to places like here or mainland Europe or to Japan or even coast to coast in every state in the United States, it's like that's a magical thing. And I talk about identity, and I talk about home and place. I talk about these things like a lot in my set, because those are sort of themes that I'm not done dealing with yet, you know. And I think what makes music really durable is when people speak truth to their own experience. And so like across genres, across generations, across even mediums, you know, like there is just something about our humanity that can transcend, you know. And so like I go looking for those moments of honesty, and I might find it on stage, but in truth I find it in the people that I meet. And so like I love to come back to the UK, because at this point I've had friends that I made here you know, back in 2011, and to grow with people in this community here and to participate in that way, like that's like the sort of dividend, that's the sort of gift that I didn't anticipate getting when I started touring. Is I didn't realize the people I was going to meet on those first tours, we might grow old together and stay in touch and be friends, and like that's beautiful. So of course I had to come back.
It is?
Yeah.
That's great.
In my face for the first time, like seeing my face for the first time, like seeing my face, big first time.
So on a slightly more serious note, you spoke about the song "Creepin'" as partially, at least, being about racial tensions. That you experienced growing up. In an Alyssa Kai article in The Guardian last year, she kind of spoke about how, along with women, people of colour in punk and alternative music can often be whitewashed, was the term she used, by mainstream media and kind of forgotten about or left out of the spotlight. What's your take on that? Have you experienced anything like that, or do you think? Sure. Yeah.
And I identify with Alyssa's sentiment in terms of like, so many of us, we get to these spaces because we feel unheard, and we come here because it is this cathartic release, you know, and so we go to shows and we participate in this community because we feel marginalized. But when you start contributing, you start to realize that people will place limitations on you intentionally or unintentionally. And I think good and bad behaviors are learned. So people are just modeling after behaviors they've seen before. And here I am on stage, you know, at moments of my life where, you know, I thought, it's funny, I wear American flags, like, and I feel like a tourist because I'm wearing, I didn't think about it, but I like to wear American flags around America because I like to let people know America can look like this too. Because I have been told my whole life, not every day, in like an explicit way, but at some moments of my life, I've been told that I'm not American. At the last show I played in the States before I came here, people asked me if I came from this country, yelled, "Oh, Bruce Lee's on stage," and like, or Jackie Chan this or whatever, talking about me in terms of like how they've experienced Asian people in the media, you know, and they're learning from, you know, movies or whatever that Asians are subservient, or they're violent, or they're sex objects, and we are not allowed to be these like dynamic people as and we're not included in the storyline of America. You know, we deal with a lot of erasure in American history, the Asian Americans. So many people grow up not knowing that the American government interned Japanese Americans during the Second World War, which I had family that was interned in the Second World War. And that it's crazy to have these struggles and your own story taken away from you. So I identify with all oppressed people, and I think that's what gives me this sort of community perspective on music that makes me rush towards that. You know, that I think the destroy everything nihilism of like Sex Pistols and whatnot is very attractive, but after a time, that gives way to people with more of a political message. So I quickly went from like Sex Pistols to like, oh, The Clash has something more to say. And you know, if it weren't for bands like Propaganda or Refused, I might not have gotten turned on to like great thinkers like Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn, and people that really kind of pulled the curtain back and said like, this is what's really going on. This is really humanity's struggle. And so that sort of message of equality is really important to me because I know exactly how it feels to be like put down, you know, for shit I can't change.
How about in punk music specifically? Because there seems to be this schism between far left bands like Refused, like you said,
right,
and then like the Oi punk movement, which kind of started in this country, unfortunately, right, and has associations with like far right, National Front Party. Have you ever experienced anything in that, or do you think that there is maybe a good and bad side to punk?
There's a good and bad side to anything. So it's never about like the model. Like you can be a major label band and still be ethical. You can be a DIY band and still be ethical. Similarly, you can be this DIY person and be totally unethical. So it's not about the details, the superficial stuff. It's about our intention and our actions, you know. So like being able to look past some of those surface level things and see what's like what people are really doing is difficult, but you have to have an eye for it so you can know how to better your own self. So when I look at like nationalist movement, like I come from Pennsylvania where they had like the highest concentration of organized hate groups in the United States when I was growing up.
Wow, really?
Which this is a state that's a northern state.
Yeah.
It tends to vote Democratic in presidential elections, but largely this is like a rural working class state. And I think a lot of those racial tensions went up and up and up when all of industry, our manufacturing base, steel and like fabric mills and all types of industry left Pennsylvania, and that gave way to these like really racist attitudes. At my very first show, there was like Nazi skinhead punks that had like swastikas tattooed on their heads and wearing like swastika patches. And what I found so powerful about that first show is like our punk community in central Pennsylvania was really patient and self-policing, and only when they started to cause a problem did those guys get kicked out. But I knew that there was like a youth crew hardcore looking dude, like a crusty punk with Liberty spikes, an emo kid with horn-rimmed glasses, all kind of looking out for a little 12-year-old Asian boy who was at his first punk show. And that was one of the first times I ever had an advocate in public. I grew up with like, you know, people speaking really loud to my family thinking we don't speak English. Like, you can't be American. You know, there's no way. We don't know how to pronounce your name. Like, you, like, getting into fights, you know. I was like the kid that would be like volunteer of the year, but I get suspended for fighting, you know. So it was always that interplay of like trying to find my place, stand up for myself. And finally when I found punk, did I find that like, you know, you could be part of something bigger than yourself. And even though I didn't have any Asian peers growing up in Pennsylvania, I felt like I could still participate in something, you know, in a culture. And that was powerful. The fact that like music and punk rock gave that to me when I really needed it in those like really crazy adolescent years. I think that's what made me want to do it for the rest of my life. You know, I'm here today because people stuck up for me at my first show, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the rest of the story. You know.
That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, less serious now. What's next for you?
Well, I've been writing and recording, and this has probably been the most productive time in my entire life. So, I've been really happy to have an opportunity to work with Will Yip again at Studio 4 in Conshohocken, and to get to play with some of my like really good friends. My art school roommate Chris Sigda, who's in a band called Cassavetes, he and I have been collaborating a bunch. Which that's Josh from Painted Black's other band, and then Willie Rose, who's the drummer on my first EP, Some Small Way. We got to do some songs together, and Rodrigo and Dennis from the band Saves the Day also collaborated with me on some new music.
Nice.
So we've just been doing tons of songs, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm really excited to share them with people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you know what form they're going to take yet? Is it going to be another EP, another full length?
I think we're gonna do something short and something longer, and like I have like, you know, another 24 songs I haven't even recorded yet or arranged. So I'm like so ready to go right back into the studio and do more. So we'll see what takes shape, but know that there's new music coming, and it's my very best. It's my very best. This last year, I like made it my mission to see bands that I didn't get to see because of touring or when I didn't have money to go to a show or something.
Yeah.
So I got to see bands like Guided by Voices and Built to Spill and Superchunk and Mission of Burma, Neutral Milk Hotel, and like so many others that I just never saw because I was like, you can always afford to go see the punk show or whatever, but you know, to see some of these bands was like so crazy. Yeah. So I definitely think sonically I've kind of returned to that sound a little bit. Yeah, so it's
Cool.
it's still me, but a different side.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, thank you.
Just talking about it has literally got me excited about it.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. That's great. Koji.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was honestly really